This is a Dragon Blazer production.
Coming soon to a podcast near you.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Coming Soon to a podcast near you. I am, of course, your host, Stevie Blaze. I don't have a cool nickname for this yet because, I'm not entirely sure what we're about to watch. And as always is my co-host, Xavier.
Yeah, we're going to watch Gone with the Wind, by the way.
We are going to watch Gone with the Wind. And so we're doing this real quick before we actually watch the movie and before we watch the trailer. We're about to watch the trailer. And so I guess quick little thingy. We are watching this for, and by the way, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. We are watching this for Mother's Day. It is my mother and Xavier's grandma. It's her favorite movie. And so we are watching. I have avoided watching this movie for 40 years. And so I've never seen it. And it's her favorite movie. I have my reasons, and I've never watched it, kind of on purpose. But we are going to watch it for Mother's Day with my mother. And but here's the thing. I know of the movie. I know a few things of the movie. I know the two characters are Scarlett O'Hara, Rhett Butler. I know it takes place during the Civil War. And I know that at some point, Rhett Butler tells her, frankly, Scarlett, I don't give a damn. Now, what is the damn he doesn't give? I don't quite know. But I know that he doesn't give one. So I don't know what this movie's going to be about. I'm assuming maybe a love story with, war in the background. I'm not
and
sure.
Wind.
But what we're going to do. Okay, you know what? Let's do this first. Before we watch this trailer, what do you think Gone with the Wind is about? Without watching the trailer, and then we'll do the same after watching the trailer.
I think it's going to be about wind, or lack thereof, maybe.
And how that it's gone.
That's why I said lack thereof.
Yeah, that's right. It's a good guess. It's wind, and now it is gone. It's as good a guess as any. So I'm going to put the trailer up, and we're going to watch it right now. And then we will share what we think this movie is going to be about. And then tomorrow we're going to watch it. And then we'll talk about our thoughts later. So,
right.
Here is the movie. Well, let's check it out. It's a classic movie.
Gone with the Wind. He looks familiar, kind of. He does not.
Gone with the Wind has captured the imagination and acclaim of the entire world. The screen has never known a love story to compare with this. When Rhett Butler meets Scarlett O'Hara.
I love you more than I've ever loved any woman. And I've waited longer for you than I've ever waited for any woman.
Let me alone.
Kiss me once.
Can't we ever forget that day at 12 Oaks?
Do you think I could ever forget it? Have you forgotten it? Can you honestly say you don't love me?
No, I don't love you.
It's a lie.
Well, even if it is a lie, do you think I'd go off and leave Melanie and the baby?
I'm not cornered. You'll never corner me, Rhett Butler, or frighten me. You've lived in dirt so long you can't understand anything else. And you're jealous of something you can't understand. Good night.
It's not that easy, Scarlett. You turned me out while you chased Ashley Wilkes, while you dreamed of Ashley Wilkes. This is one night you're not turning me out.
Wait, what?
A love affair you'll remember as long as you live, filled with all the fire and fury of the times in which it happened.
I don't think it's the love affair that I'll be remembering.
Gone with the Wind. First picture to win 10 Academy Awards. The most honored, the most talked about motion picture in all film history.
Okay. So, that
It's
that last scene,
didn't really
no,
answer any questions for me.
I'm not sure if love story is quite the right words for that. What I just saw, it sure looked like Rhett Butler was being very forceful with what he was about to do to Scarlett O'Hara. I mean, those were some very forceful kissing. And I believe he said, "You're going to forget about him," and picked her up and brought her upstairs to do what?
Humping like rabbits, maybe.
Yeah. But, was it consensual? I,
1950s, we'll never know. But
Actually,
yeah,
it
that's
was-
pretty messed up.
Actually, it came out in 1939, but
Um,
and the movie
I
takes
thought I
place
saw
in
like 50 or something.
nope. The movie came out in 1939, and it takes place during the Civil War, which you know what around about what years those is, right?
Yeah, 1880.
I want to say 65, like 55 to 65. I'm not sure how long the Civil War went actually, but yeah.
Well,
So
we've got the old-fashioned internet.
it was the 1800s. I think
I know that.
Lincoln. I think Lincoln was assassinated in 65. So I think, and that was, I believe, the end of the after the Civil War.
It happened from 1861 to 1865. Almost exactly 4 years.
Gotcha. So yeah, it really didn't explain much. I'm still not entirely sure what this movie's about. Apparently there's a love story and it won a bunch of awards, and we're about to watch it.
Yep.
I've avoided this for 40 years, and it's about to happen.
Okie doke.
All right. Well, the next time we are on this screen, we'll have watched Gone with the Wind. All right. Well, we are now back, and we have officially watched this really, 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 really long movie, Gone with the Wind. But we know what it's about now, ish. So before we get into our synopsis or whatever, what did you think of Gone with the Wind, Xavier?
Well, it was a really, 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 really strange experience. It was long.
Strange experience.
It was
okay.
It was long. It was hard, and for some reason it just wasn't stimulating in the way that it should have been.
I'm not sure I like the descriptions you just gave for this movie. Long, hard, and stimulating. It was not.
No, it wasn't stimulating though. In fact, I had to use the
I
bathroom
said it
a
was
lot.
not. Yes.
Anyways, though, I'm sorry, but sometimes you'd kind of just have to like look at a movie and wonder why. I'm not saying this movie was bad. I will not judge it in that way. It's not a bad movie. It probably was a lot better for its time because, for one thing, movies in color were not exactly, common back then. In fact, literally the first one to have been made with color was just made a few months prior, as we mentioned. Which we should probably do as well for this podcast at some point. Probably not in the near future, unfortunately, because we're doing other things with that. But yeah, this is our Mother's Day podcast, and it is a bit of a weird one. This is the longest movie, probably, but not by double, because I'm pretty sure before this
Titanic was pretty long.
Oh yeah, I almost said Star Wars Episode 3, but yeah, the Titanic was like 3 hours. But yeah, this
now, would you say did you like this or Titanic more?
Probably Titanic.
Yeah. Yes. So this is kind of like I'm glad I watched it because of the history. I know that this is a very prominent movie in cinema. It's won a lot of awards. It was very prominent for its time. It's also my mother's favorite movie, which is why we watched it. This is my mom's favorite movie, and so we watched her favorite movie for Mother's Day. It's a movie I am glad I just saw, and I never want to see again. And it's not that it's bad, and I'm glad like I said, I'm glad I watched it. It's not a bad movie. I can see why it won the awards. The acting, phenomenal. The acting was phenomenal in this movie. There are scenes in this movie that look like it came straight out of a painting. I mean, there's a lot of beautiful scenes in this movie. It's not. I don't want to watch it again because it's bad. I don't want to watch it again because it's 4 hours. And quite frankly, this is not my genre of movie. This was mostly if you can call it that, a love story. And if I'm watching a love story, traditionally, it's a comedy. It's a romantic comedy. There's some jokey elements involved.
I watched a romantic comedy with Yamcha, and I liked it, Kakarot.
And not
what
only
happened
that,
to me, man?
And not only that, but traditionally, let's be honest, I watch a lot less love stories when I'm single, and I'm not dating or seeing anyone. So therefore, the desire to watch a love story, even a romantic comedy. Now there are some that I was like, oh, that looks really funny, and I'll want to watch it for the comedy aspect, not the love story. But I traditionally don't watch a lot of love stories when I'm single. So, yeah, this just wasn't my genre. It's also more drama. With that being said, it's a very interesting movie.
Oh, yeah, it's very dramatic.
This is drama. This is straight up drama.
Yeah, like I said, it may not be down my alley, but I will not say that it's a bad movie, because if we look at it from its time, what you said, 1939. Is this 38 or 39?
39.
39. Yeah, this movie is over 80 years old. This movie is almost 90 years old. Actually, it's over 90 years old. Wait. No, it's not 90 years old yet.
It's about 80s.
I'm having a brain fart with math because I'm not thinking about math. I'm thinking about things that are supposed to be Gone with the Wind, but is not really. I mean, I guess her sanity kind of is gone with the wind. I guess the war kind of went and gone with the wind, figuratively speaking. I don't know. I'm a bit confused with the title of this movie.
I don't know either, but it's
a fun name. Someone was like, we need a name for this movie. This is a popular saying with youngins nowadays. Say Gone with the Wind.
So
Yeah.
first off, the name is because this was originally a book.
Oh.
This was a book first.
Well, then I'm talking about the people who titled the book then, not the movie.
Probably the author that titled it. But no, this was a book first. It was adapted within like 4 years of its of the book being published.
It's relatively quick, sort of.
If you want, I can give you a little bit differences of the book and the movie because I did look it up. But we'll do that after synopsis. We'll do it after the synopsis. But yeah, I don't fully understand. I'm guessing Gone with the Wind is kind of a popular phrase from back then that just kind of but the phrase is probably Gone with the Wind. Anyways. Thank you.
Gone with the wind. Ain't nobody looking back.
So, Gone with the Wind is a movie that the first part of it, this is 4 hours, and it's broken up in two parts. There's an intermission and everything. Gone with the Wind is a movie that takes place before, during, and after the Civil War. It takes place mostly a lot of it's in Georgia. And you are focused on a southern plantation owner named Scarlett O'Hara, who starts out at 16 at the very beginning before the war, and then they go off to war. And Scarlett O'Hara is hopelessly in love with I'm losing his name because he's just not that interesting of a character. She's in love with another man who happens to be married to her sister. Or gets married. At the beginning of the movie, they just announced their engagement.
There's a lot of incest in this movie. And it takes place in Ireland, which it's a pretty big stereotype with them.
Whoa.
Wait, what?
First, Ireland.
Oh, wait, no. They're Irish people. They're Irish people.
They're from Ireland. Okay. Yeah, I can, yes. But, no, this takes place during, in the South. Georgia in the South. So, I'm trying to find his name. Ashley Wilkes. That's his name. She's in love with Ashley, who is married to Melanie. I believe that's her name, Melanie. And Scarlett constantly brings up that, oh, I love you. And he's like, no, this can't happen. I'm marrying your cousin or your sister or whatever. And she's just as obsessed with him. And every time something major happens, like, it seems like she gets upset and she does something to kind of try to either piss him off or try to make him jealous. So she marries her first husband, which I'm going to be completely honest with you, I don't remember his name. But she there's a lot of names, there's a lot of movies, and unfortunately I can't recognize them by the names in here.
I forgot she even had a first husband first.
She does. She marries a young boy right before he goes off to war, to the Civil War.
And dies.
And he dies. Yeah, absolutely. And then after he dies, she gets upset because there's this big dance going on and she wants to dance. But as a widow, that's not prim and proper.
Yeah.
So she's
Also, she's supposed to be grieving, but she didn't even really like the guy. So why is she supposed to grieve for this like man she didn't even love? This girl's kind of a hi there.
So yeah, but she gets and in comes Brett Butler. So she tries to throw herself on Ashley, tell Ashley she's in love with him. He brushes her off. She gets mad and throws something at the wall, and Rhett Butler happens to be lying on the couch there. Or back then they probably called it a Gavin part. Yeah, he jumped up.
This guy is easily my most favorite character in the entire movie.
Yeah,
I know he is a main character, so I'm definitely gonna have to choose someone else. But yeah, he is my favorite character in this.
Yeah, no, Rhett was a very entertaining character at times, and I think the reason why it works is because Rhett sees her for what she is. So let's just be frank here. Scarlett is not a good person. Hello?
You cut off for a second there. Hi, Floof.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now, but cut off.
Well, let's be completely honest here. Scarlett is not a very good person.
She's
not. Just not. She's stubborn.
Unhinged.
She's kind of and she's very damaged, which we'll get into that later.
Grandma Darla did defend her a lot, saying she's misunderstood. She's misunderstood, yes, but doesn't mean she isn't not damaged.
I understood her completely. She loved a guy. She loved another guy, and Rhett loved her. I will say Rhett did love her because Rhett saw her.
What?
I said I will say that Rhett definitely loved her. He saw her for all of her bad and still loved her. He was the one person that saw her for what she was.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, what she was kind of messed up, but yeah, he can choose to love her, especially if he sees the bad in her.
But but he tells her that, and she tells him, "I will never love you, Rhett Butler. I will never say those words. I will never say it. I love you." So right off the bat, she's telling him, "I will never say those words." Now,
she says those
this
words.
is the South, so this is probably considered okay back then, but he's 33 and she's 16 at this time. But like I said, that back then that was probably okay. It's not today. That's weird.
Yeah.
But back then, they had different.
Legally, it was okay, but I don't think it was. Legally, it's okay for a 35-year-old to marry an 18-year-old, but it doesn't mean it's exactly okay. I'm sorry, but not sorry. That is way too big of an age gap.
Well, anyways, my point is that there was an age gap, definitely.
Yeah.
So anyways, so she marries this guy and then he dies. And geez, my computer is acting up. Here we go.
Well, you just got it, man.
Yeah.
What have you been putting your computers through, man?
Podcasting, that's it.
It's like that scene from Ren and Stimpy. Call the police. I'm sorry. That's such a dark joke from that show. It seems so weird and lighthearted at first, but man, it's like, you got any rubber walrus protector?
What are you talking about?
Have you not watched Ren and Stimpy?
It's been a while, but I don't remember that.
Anyways, Gone with the Wind. So hi, boy. You're such a fluffy boy.
Anyways,
I love you.
great content. Anyways,
Yeah, amazing content. Yeah, I'm calling up my cat, and you're screwing with your computer. This is the life. Also, there's flowers behind me, which I guess goes great with the whole theme we've got with like Mother's Day and all that.
oh yeah.
I didn't even notice that at first though.
So her second, so then we go through the entire Civil War. At one point, she helps with nursing, which I found very odd because based on her character, I would not expect that from her at all. But in those times, she probably didn't have much of a choice.
Right. That, and I'm pretty sure you can tell she wasn't exactly all that happy with the situation.
No, she freaks out seeing all the dead bodies and runs off.
Yeah.
Which, in fairness, I get it.
Thomas, what the hell are you doing? Thomas, why are you doing this to the poor ball? Dude, I'm trying to podcast here. Why are you trying to get my attention? I think he's trying to get my attention.
So she goes back, doesn't want to do that anymore. And then one thing Ashley asks her to do is to take care of his wife, her sister, and the baby. She finds out that she's pregnant. So then her sister is having a baby, and she goes and tries to find a doctor. Doctor is dealing with literally a bunch of thousands of dead Southern soldiers. And he's like, I don't have time to deal with a baby. And so she has to help. She has to go help her have the baby by herself, which she does succeed. I will say one thing about Scarlett. There are times, now she's not a likable character. I don't think so. But there are times when you respect and like her. This is one of those times. She gains the strength to do certain things, and she does go through hell. I will say that. It's not, but she's very whiny at times, but she goes through hell. I mean, she's a Southern girl. She loses her house. She loses her family, a lot of her family because of the war. This war that at the beginning she's like, I don't care about no war.
It wasn't very civil, that's for sure.
Ow. So Rhett ends up helping her escape with with her sister and the baby, and Prissy, which was her slave. She's a plantation owner in the South. She has slaves.
Oh yeah, that reminds me. Scarlett slaps people all the time. Like I counted.
Oh yeah, she slapped
4 times.
Of people.
She's slappy. She's slap happy.
She did like to slap people. She'd get upset and she'd slap people. Yeah. That is true.
We call those bitch slaps, and we don't like those where we don't like people like that around here. We don't take too kindly.
She escapes Georgia and goes back to her plantation. And with the help of Brett for part of it, there was a really cool scene, and I have heard that the scene where she's riding in horse and buggy with Rhett and the baby and all that, that was before she was casted in the movie. So all that was done with stunt people. And what they did is they actually burned out a bunch of old sets. I know one of the sets was King Kong set. They burned down the like wall that was in King Kong,
Well, that's neat.
and they literally burned it all down. All of that was real fire. They just literally did that scene while everything was burning. But she makes it back to Plantation, finds out that they destroyed a bunch of it. Her home's mostly okay. But her mom dies, and then her dad pretty much loses his marbles and thinks her mom is still alive, or his husband's still alive, or his wife is still alive, my bad. And then they have no food because everything was taken by the Yankees, the Northerners. And then we get, at the very end of the first half, we get the iconic scene, which I did not realize was from this movie. I did not realize it. I recognize the scene from many different movies, cartoons that have mimicked it, parodied it, everything.
As God is my witness.
I will never go hungry again. I will lie, cheat, kill, steal, but I will never go hungry again. Like I said, I did not realize that came from this movie. I've heard versions of that in many different cinema. I did not know it came from Gone with the Wind. It was a cool scene. That's one thing that I'm glad about watching this movie is seeing things that are from the originals that I didn't realize was from the what was the original. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that was cool. So then the second part happens, and right away she kills someone. A northerner, a deserter, comes in and pretty much is giving off very either thief or rapey vibes. And she straight up he doesn't realize she has a gun, and she shoots him in the face.
What you got in the other hand there, girly girl?
It was a pretty graphic scene for a movie that didn't have, even though this movie takes place during the war, it wasn't very graphic. They had dead bodies everywhere, but they didn't. Yeah, they had a bunch of dead bodies everywhere, but they didn't really show a lot of gore to it. Right. Just dead bodies lying.
And side note, we watched this like a day or two after we got done watching Cocaine Bear for the first time, and somebody got shot in the head kind of like in the similar fashion by this park ranger. It's
yeah,
it's all pretty graphic, and it's fun. It's
yeah, but
fun
I expected
stuff.
that from Cocaine Bear. I did not expect it from this movie.
Right. I mean, I expected. It felt kind of expected in the moment. Like you see this guy, like, I don't know, getting up really predatorily.
Oh no.
And then this girl, like, you see that there's a gun in her other hand. She's like,
no. I'm not saying I didn't expect her to shoot him. That I expected. I didn't expect it to be as graphic as it was. You can have shooting in a movie and not actually show anything. They do it all the time. There's all kinds of movies where they shoot someone and they show it off screen, or you hear it. You don't actually see it. They actually, if you watched close enough, you literally see the man's head explode pretty much. That's what I mean. There's a difference in violence. There's a difference between PG-13 violence and PG or R-rated violence. This was full-on R-rated violence, which was surprising.
Well, I mean, he also got kind of what he wanted. He wanted to bang someone. Somebody banged him.
Oh, geez. Anyways, so her sister sees her do this. And I felt like this is where her sister and her bond a lot more. Because her sister's like, oh, I'm glad you did it. I'm glad you did it. Let's get rid of him. So they get rid of the body. And it's funny, she's dragging him away, and she's like, well, I guess I killed him, man. Don't need to be thinking about that right now. I'll think about that tomorrow.
It's got real. That's future Yami's problem.
So
Vibes.
then these dick neighbors who they constantly call white trash in the movie, which I did not realize was a phrase that was used that far back. I thought white trash would be something that's more current times, maybe 80s,
Right.
70s. But no, they're calling these people white trash. Well, they're working with the Yankees and the Northerners, and apparently the Northerners have raised the taxes, and they raised it to $300, which was a lot back in the 1930s. So she ends up.
I mean, this movie did take place like in the 1860s. Keep in mind, so it was a lot more.
Well, that's
actually.
true. Yeah, that's true. That's true. You're right. This took place during the Civil War, so 300 was a lot of money. So she ends up finding a guy who is in love with her sister, and he is just started his own business, and it's going very well. She has a bunch of lumber, and he doesn't know what he's doing with it. So she essentially lies about how her sister feels about him and marries him. She once again does this strategically because she wants his money. So they get married, and she starts a new lumber yard in Georgia. And you can just tell that she just doesn't care. There is a scene where you find out that they're using prisoners for slave labor. Essentially, they replaced all the slaves they had with prisoners to do the work, and they treat them worse. And her husband's like, well, I don't feel right about this. I don't feel right about using these men the way they treat them. She's like, well, you didn't have a problem when they were how does she describe them? The darkies. And he's like, well, or when we had slaves at the plantation, and he's like, well, that's different. Essentially, I think he was trying to say that we treated them better than what these people are treated. But she didn't care because they were cheap labor. He wanted to hire some people. And then something happens. She goes out and she gets attacked by this guy. And one of her former slaves saves her. And then they go out to go after the people that attacked her. And her husband ends up getting killed in that raid. And then these Northerners are searching for her husband and Ashley. So there she loses her second husband. Then eventually she marries Rhett Butler, who is always showing up, by the way, and always calling her out on her bullshit.
I like his mustache.
But she realizes that Rhett Butler is loaded. He's rich. So that's when she finally decides to marry him. She still doesn't tell him he loves her. She loves him. And she also tells him that, that...
Well, yeah, she's a gold digger.
Yeah, she flat out tells him that, too. I'm only doing this because I need your money. Okay.
Okay, yeah. I'm
That's
fine with this.
No, she does have feelings for Rhett Butler. She just refuses to admit it. And he knows that she's in love with Ashley. And their whole marriage in the second half is all about him constantly seeing her and finding out about her throwing herself on Ashley all the time. And So this results in a night where he hears that she was holding Ashley. It was seen by everyone, and then he tells her she has to go to this party for her sister, and then he leaves her. He's like, "No, you're going by yourself." Nobody mentions it. Her sister just ignores what she's heard. I think her sister's known the whole time that she's in love with Ashley. She just trusted her husband not to do anything, apparently, or didn't care. I don't know which. But she comes back from this party, and Rhett's drinking. By drinking, I mean drunk.
Yeah.
And he starts suggesting that he should kill her. He should smash her head, puts his hands on her head, and I should crush it the way he treats her. And then he picks her up. He's like, tonight, no, you won't be thinking about Ashley. You will forget about Ashley. And he essentially rapes her. I mean, forces himself on her. I don't know how else to say it. This is why I say she's damaged. Because the next day, she has the biggest smile on her face. She loved it. She loved that he forced himself on her. Anyways, they have a child. They had a child. They have a child. And apparently that night, she gets pregnant again. He leaves with his daughter, their daughter. And then her daughter wants to go back and miss his mom. And he's like, well, she doesn't even care about you. She's a terrible mother. But he doesn't tell her daughter that. And they come back, and Scarlett is mad, tells him that she's pregnant with his another child, and he just accuses her of being with someone else. So whose child is it? And he backs away as she's throwing herself at him, and she falls down the stair and loses the baby. Then their child is riding on a horse and says, I want to jump. And they scream, no, don't do it. She jumps. She falls off the horse. She breaks her neck. And they lose their daughter. This girl goes through a lot of tragedy. Don't get me wrong. She's still not a good person, but she goes through a lot. And then we finally get to the iconic line. Well, no. Then as they're mourning the child, and there was really sad part where Rhett's like, you find out that Rhett doesn't want to bury their child because their daughter was afraid of the dark. And she doesn't want to put her in a grave because she's afraid of the dark. And heartbreaking, really. And then her sister collapses. And once her sister dies, her sister tells her, take care of Ashley, take care of my child, and be kind to Rhett. He truly does love you. And then she goes out. She talks to Ashley. I'm so sorry. And she's kind of throwing herself out again. And then that's when she finally realizes that Ashley doesn't love her. Even with his sister dead, Ashley's not interested in her. And that's when she realized, oh my gosh, you never loved me. Why did I pine over you for all these years? So she goes back to...
funny feeling. You never loved me to begin with.
So she goes to Rhett. She goes back to Rhett and then tells him, I realize now that I love you. And he's like, because Rhett's mad, and he's like, oh, now you can have Ashley. Now nothing's stopping you. She's like, I don't want Ashley anymore. I realize that I love you. And that's when we get the iconic line, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. And the movie ends with her realizing she's in love with Rhett and vowing to find him again and get back with him. That was Gone with the Wind. Yeah.
It was a roller coaster ride.
It was. It was
in a way, yeah. It was
a long movie. It was hard to. I was hard to break all that down without missing stuff because there was a lot of important scenes.
This podcast is already like covered over an hour, so you basically like watching a 4-hour movie and then like, hey, listen to another hour of us talking about that.
So first thing I want to bring up is the differences between the book. I looked up some differences, and so one of my biggest gripes about one of the weird things about this movie is how they romanticize slavery. I don't know how else to say it other than, you know, all these people have slaves and it seems like they get along with their slaves and that there was no mistreatment or anything like that. It's a very positive.
If you don't count Scarlett smacking that one slave really hard mistreatment.
Okay, true, but
I guess to be fair,
but Scarlett slaps everyone, so it wasn't really. I don't think that was necessarily a. I'm not saying it was
this
good.
hand ain't racist. This hand smacks everybody.
No. I'm not saying. I'm not even saying that. But the way they portrayed that scene was that Prissy was getting very, was getting like hysterical, I guess, and it was like the slap was to calm her down. It wasn't necessarily a I'm beating you down because you're black slap, you know what I mean? It was, but Scarlett slapped everyone. So, I mean, I didn't even see that as being super.
So there are better ways to bring somebody to like.
I didn't say it was the right thing to do. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do.
I'm just saying you should. I'm just saying this girl's really slap happy.
I'm saying according to the movie, that wasn't being portrayed as her treating slaves badly. That's not what that scene was meant to portray.
Right.
There was nothing else. There was no, it was all very, it was like the South had a very, good relationship with all their slaves. And so that was always kind of a weird thing, which it's gone through some protests and stuff now. And there's disclaimer on it now. If you watch it, like or at least they used to have it on a streaming service, and there was a warning at the front, like this is, an old-fashioned portrayal. So, but anyways, in the book, it's different. In the book, the romanticizing of the slavery is not nearly as prominent.
Romanticized.
It's not as romanticized. For one thing, the KKK is present in the book. And unless they make the KKK just seem to be just like some really strong, just a loving of white people and not a hate group, which I mean, I guess that's possible, but they
are lovers of white people. That is what they are.
They do love white people, but it's a hate group. Yeah. But anyways, so the KKK is prominent in the book. And I guess her second husband was a member of the KKK. And in the book, when that person attacks Scarlett on the road, in the movie, he's white. In the book, he was a black man. So and this makes a lot more sense in that scene, because when her husband and Ashley go after the people that attacked her, it's because they were black people and they thought that the Northerners were not going to take care of the situation proper in their eyes. So they decided to take matters in their own hand as KKK members.
That reminds me.
Goes to slaughter all the. Go ahead.
That reminds me. I don't know if you knew this, but there are some people out there who thinks that Yankee is the Y word. That's up there with the N word for some reason. There are people who actually think Yankee is like a racial slur for white people. I don't know
All right.
why.
Here's the thing. It may be a slur, but considering they're willing to say Yankee to explain that, and you still use the N word to explain the other one of those words is worse.
Yeah, yeah, I know. There's a lot of people who seem to really want to like have this thing with like, okay, this word there has to be like an N word for white people because otherwise I can't suffer as much as they suffer, and their suffering gives them privileges, so I need suffering. That's really weird mentality.
Yeah, it's a
that
dumb
a lot
mentality.
of people have.
Anyways,
it is a very dumb mentality.
The other big difference from the book is Scarlet is a lot less misunderstood. Because in the book, you read the book and you read her thoughts. So all these facial expressions, because one thing I'll say about this movie is her facial expressions are fantastic. She goes from beautiful smile to I'm going to murder you in like 2.5 seconds flat. It's like on a dime. But in the book, you really hear her thoughts, and she has some ugly thoughts. She's much more of a terrible person in the book, and she's already, I think, a terrible person in this movie. So that's pretty much the differences that I noticed that I read about.
Hey, buddy.
Do you want to give this a rating, son?
I was afraid. I was afraid because, yeah, this movie wasn't really made recently because so we've got like so there's not as many standards. I gotta remember, how did I rate Snow White? Because I know like that movie has some issues that, you know, if made today, then it wouldn't really be. How did I rate Snow White?
I don't
Was
remember.
it like a 6? I feel like
it was our first Disney film. I don't know.
Yeah, I've got a document. I rated a 4.5. So yeah, although I'm definitely you feel like I rate movies a lot differently now than at the beginning of the podcast. I think I'm okay. This movie is a classic, but I'm not going to rate it up based on that. Instead, I'm going to rate it like based on what it wants to be and if it's good, stuff like that. Like today's standards, I don't think this movie would be good. But like back then, yeah, I'm going to give it a 5.5.
So I feel like I have to give it two different ratings. One rating would be my personal enjoyment of this movie, and one rating would be how good I think the movie is.
Yeah, the first one, my personal enjoyment. I'm trying to like avoid giving that kind of rating because like romantic comedies are not my thing, so I can't be judging it.
This isn't even a comedy though. This is just a romance.
I don't know. The mustachioed red guys.
Right. Funny. At times, but that doesn't make it a comedy.
Right.
My personal enjoyment, this is probably a 4.5. I did enjoy some of the Civil War stuff, and the acting was really good. And if I go by how, just based on what if I was a fan of this genre and I was judging this more, less personal, I would say it's about a 7.5 or 8. It is a good movie. I recognize it's a good movie. My just personal enjoyment of it is a little lower because this isn't my type of movie, and it was really long. So you add this isn't my type of movie with it's really long. It really kind of lowers my opinion of it because it's just it's like being forced to watch. You're forced to watch something you don't want to watch. I wasn't forced. We chose to do this, but
repetitive at times.
Oh no, I think the scenes are good. The acting's good. I think the scenery's great. I recognize it as a good movie. This wasn't my movie. This wasn't my type of movie. That's what I'll say. So I don't know if there is a Rotten Tomatoes of this, but do you want to guess what you think the Rotten Tomatoes is?
Based on like everything I know about like really old movies, I'm willing to bet that it's pretty high up there. I'm gonna guess 96 for critics and 88 for audience.
I'm gonna go 92 with critics, 72 with audience.
All right.
I feel like there's a lot of people this is not their movie, but maybe they didn't. Maybe they aren't the critics that did it. So let's see what this says. Oh, the critics gave it a 90%.
Okay, so you were closer on that one.
And audience gave it a 92%.
But I was closer on that one. All right.
All right. So what I think we're going to do, I say we just, this episode's long enough. I don't think we need to send a mantra tonight for this one.
Yeah, I kind of agree on that.
So what we're going to do is I have a interview. Actually, first off, we're going to show off. One moment. I am going to show you. We're going to show off the videos that I took of my mom's collection. So my mom has a Gone with the Wind collection. A lot of Gone with the Wind stuff. So we're going to watch that here on the podcast. And I'm going to show those. And then I'm going to end it with the interview that we did with my mom about what her opinions of this movie are. So, real quickly, go ahead and plug your pluggables.
I am CryoKeenArtist on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, and kind of Twitter. Also TikTok. I'm also Snowshine Gaming on YouTube. That is my gaming channel. Peace.
And I am Dragon Blazer Productions on the Facebook, the Instagram, the YouTubes, and the TikToks. Or no, not the TikToks. And I am Dragon Blazer Pro on the Twitters.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you for listening. Enjoy the interview with my mom and his grandma. And auf Wiedersehen. Auf Wiedersehen.
Okay, peace. I already said peace. What are you talking about?
All right, and now we have my mother on here to tell us her thoughts on Gone with the Wind. Why is this your favorite movie?
This became my favorite movie when I was very young. My dad and my Uncle Eugene, they went to see it in 1939. My dad hated it. My Uncle Eugene loved it. And made me want to see it. So I finally seen it. I think I was maybe 13 or 14 when I finally seen it. And I just fell in love with the movie. I just loved it. Dad hated it every time. So.
Well, that's 4 hours long of hating. So.
Yeah, well, my dad would have been probably 10 years old when the movie came out. and my uncle would have been 11. But
I can't imagine being 10, you said 10 or 13 and loving this movie.
yeah, my dad was born in 29, so he would have been 10. Movie came out in 1939, so he would have been 10 when it came out. And he hated it.
Oh, I meant not only him, but I meant you. Like, I don't understand why a child would like this movie.
I love the movie for the storyline, the romance, the beautiful dresses. I mean, that was one thing I wanted my wedding dress to be, like a Gone with the Wind dress, and it kind of was my second wedding.
Okay, I can understand a young girl liking the dresses.
Dresses are gorgeous.
The dresses are beautiful. The scenery, I would also argue, is pretty, very nice to see. But the story, and I don't know if I'd call this a romance.
It's a special type of romance.
She's very misunderstood. I've always loved Scarlett, and of course was in love with Rhett. Couldn't stand Ashley. Didn't understand why she would want this wimpy guy.
I don't understand why she loved Ashley either.
Yeah, I don't get that.
I don't think they ever do a good job of explaining why she loves Ashley so much. That part confused me a lot. I didn't think that he was deserving of her obsession.
No, not at all.
That's what he was. He was an obsession.
He was.
She really likes guys who are into incest, I guess.
No.
Hey, we can't be king shaming.
No. I mean, yes, he married his cousin, but it's not like it's a first cousin or anything, and it's something they just did back then. Or in Kentucky.
I think her love of Ashley is the fact that, because this woman is damaged. There's no getting around it. Scarlett O'Hara is a damaged woman, and I think her love for Ashley is because she doesn't have Ashley. Ashley is like one of the only men not throwing himself on her.
True.
And
because she was the belle of the ball. Every man loved her. They all just loved her beauty, her charm. You know, I don't know.
And I think that's what it is she wants, and look at Until the End. The one time every time she seems to enjoy Rhett is when he's rejecting her. This is a problem with this woman.
Yeah.
I mean, Rhett literally forces himself on her, and she's happy about it.
Yes, because he was able to give her what she needed. The love that she actually needed, or the attention that she actually needed, let's say, in the sack. Because like Rhett says, she first married a boy, then she married an old man. He was the right age and a man who knew how to take care of women.
Yeah, I think it's more of a damage thing. She just did not want someone who actually wanted her. Men loved her. She didn't love them back, but she falls for the guys that don't love her. Or Rhett, who does love her.
The one guy that doesn't really love her, that admires her and knows she's beautiful, but he's in love with his wife, Melody.
Right, exactly. And then
she just didn't get that why he loved her.
And Rhett would call her out on her bullshit.
Right,
That's what Rhett did. Rhett called her out on her bullshit. He did love her.
Yes, he did.
He also did not hide, didn't try to pretend like she's a decent person.
Right.
He saw her flaws, and he loved her for the flaws. And I mean, I'll commend him for that. But, I don't know. For me, it's a weird movie, and I guess I get the dress situation because, I mean, the dresses were beautiful.
Oh, they were gorgeous.
The scenery is beautiful on a lot of it. I would have preferred more Civil War.
To me, that's the boring part.
But see, that's
when all the men are dying, and that's just a part that, because it's a period piece, they have to put that stuff in it. Just like with the slaves. I mean, it's a period piece. That was what was done back in there. That's why a lot of people don't like this movie, because they think it's a racist movie, but they need to see it as the movie, what it's written of, as a romance, because it actually is a romance.
I would argue that it's less about showing slaves. It's more about, almost every time they show a slave, they seem to be happy about their situation. And that's probably the most, I don't want to say offensive, because I don't know if I consider that offensive, but the fact that every slave in this movie seems to be happy to be a slave. And I imagine that wasn't what it was like back then.
I'm sure not all slaves were treated right, but not all slaves were treated wrong.
And I understand
But they were still slaves. I understand that part.
I think it's a
But it's not a movie about that. It's just a fact, as it's a period piece, and so far that is what, the Southern Belles, that's just how it was back then.
I guess my point is not so much that, I'm just saying it's a little bit of a romanticized version of it.
I'm sure. It's a movie.
It's a movie.
It's a movie, and it's not a movie about the slaves, even though Mammy steals the show. I mean, she's awesome.
Oh, I enjoyed a lot of the. I will say one thing: the acting in this was very, very good.
That's why it won so many awards.
There's a lot of movies back in the day that have some really weird stuff getting romanticized, to be honest.
Right. And I think that's the biggest issue. Like, I haven't looked deep dive into it. I've never watched the movie until just now, so I haven't looked I knew that there was slavery in it. I knew there was depictions of slavery, so I knew that was part of it. But, after watching it, they don't really show the slaves being beaten. They don't, I mean, this isn't 12 Years a Slave.
Because the movie's not about that. The movie is about the romance between Scarlett and Rhett Butler.
I still think that's a romanticized version of that too.
It is. I mean, it's a rough love story, but it is a love story.
I was surprised to see the guy who got shot in the head. I wasn't expecting that kind of graphic violence from this, even though I knew this was about the Civil War. But I also knew this was made in 1939.
Right.
And I knew it was an award-winning picture, and back then you didn't, a lot of times that kind of violence just wasn't shown. And it wasn't a lot, but that surprised me. Not that I have an issue with graphic violence, but I was surprised to see it in this movie. That scene did kind of shock me.
Yeah, I mean, it was one scene though,
and then the poor child. I
she fell and died like her dad did. Or her grandpa, I guess, did.
Scarlett's dad,
yeah.
I knew it was coming. As soon as they were so scared about her doing that jump, I'm like,
yep.
There's no way this doesn't end with that child either being dead or paralyzed. And I'm like, I don't remember, I didn't know a lot about this movie, so...
It really felt kind of random to me, that whole moment with, the killing the horse. Why?
Well, they had to keep pushing them apart.
Yeah.
That's what it was,
the daughter was the only thing that, kind of kept them a marriage. Okay. And that's how Rhett felt. As long as Bonnie Blue was still there, they had a marriage. They could try to get past things and make it work.
That's what kept Rhett there. Because Scarlett was willing to stay there for the long haul because he had money. I mean, she doesn't even hide that. The smile she has about saying, "Oh, and now we're rich," and I believe she literally says almost just that. "Oh, I'm rich now," and she just has this Big grin. And the one thing that I give this woman is the way she changes expressions. She can have the most beautiful smile. She has a very beautiful smile.
Yep.
And then she just, the dreaded hate that she just quickly switches over to. It's like a robot.
She's an amazing actress. She really was. I love Vivian Leigh.
No, there was not. Well, I've never seen anything with Vivian. Actually, there's not one actor in this movie I've seen more than just this movie.
I have.
I don't think I've seen anything with Clark Gable in
Oh.
it. I don't know any other movie with Clark Gable, Vivian Leigh. Those are the only two I actually know. It was brought to my attention that old Superman was in there. Tim, can you help me out here? George Reeves. I forgot his name. George Reeves was in it as a simp. He was one of the many people that was in love with Scarlett O'Hara.
He was one of the twin boys in the very beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm. I'm assuming they died in the war because...
he was one of them died.
Yeah. A lot of people died in the war.
That is what happens in war.
Yeah.
That does happen. But yeah, those were the scenes that I... So this movie's almost two parts. There's the first half, and the
That's
whole
why you have the
half-
intermission.
That's why you have the intermission, because it's almost a 4-hour movie. It's like 3 hours and 42 minutes, I believe. I looked it up. The first half was essentially takes place from the beginning to the end of the Civil War. I don't believe they had any part of the Civil War in the second half.
A little bit, not much.
I think that was the aftermath, though.
Yeah, the aftermath of the war, but there was still a little bit of the war there.
Oh no! It was completely because it was a refugee. It was the Yankees had taken over and everything, and that was the guy, the deserter that she shot, and that was right at the beginning of the second half, and it was right when the war was over, pretty much.
Well, it was more you heard the war was still going on, and you heard about when it was over in the second half.
Yeah, but all the war
because the
stuff
dad
was
comes in and he's like, "It's over."
So the first half is pretty much about 4 years, because it takes place from the Civil War was a 4-year war, and it takes place from the beginning to the end. And then the second half goes through decades. Actually, I mean, they have a kid. They're. I mean, how long do you think that was after the Civil War?
Well, their daughter wasn't that old, so
no, but she was. She was like 6, maybe.
I would say like 10. Maybe 10 years after the war.
Maybe. Do you think she got with Rhett that quickly? Because she did have a whole nother marriage before Rhett.
Yeah, but Mr. Kennedy didn't last very long.
Oh, that's true.
And her first husband, he didn't last very long.
No, they didn't last long at all.
They were married maybe a week, and then he went off to war and got killed. So.
Yeah, Scarlett was a death sentence.
Yeah.
In fairness, I'm trying to remember what she did, because she went there, went to a location and got attacked.
She went to check the workers at the lumber yard. And remember, they hired, like, prisoners.
Yeah.
So, they attacked her. And so then her husband and Ashley and a couple of Dr. Mead, and they went to go take care of where that was happening.
That's right. That's what it was. Because she was all about using... Which I find it... That was one of the interesting scenes about it, is the guy was telling her that, I don't feel right using these prisoners, but he had slaves, and then he was like, oh, but that was different.
Well...
I mean, I don't know how that was different.
Because on his plantation, they didn't treat them poorly and fed them, and these prisoners were underfed and beaten.
Okay, I guess.
And I'm sure they was on his plantation in real life, if it was real life, but this was his story.
Right. But he was not happy about it. And she didn't care.
She just wanted cheap labor.
She wanted cheap labor. She was not a good person.
She's misunderstood.
Otherwise known as not a good person.
No, she's just misunderstood. Just like, Clark thought that she didn't ask for him after she lost the baby, and she did, and, after he came back, and, she was misunderstood.
Well, I guess we didn't see that, because they didn't really show much of her after she lost the baby.
Well, she was crying for Rhett, but nobody heard her crying for Rhett.
Oh, yeah, they did show a quick scene
because
of
Mammy
her
went
crying
over
in
to
bed.
her, and she's like, "Did you call for somebody?" And she's like, "Oh, it's no use. It's no use."
Yeah, she was okay. The nicest I'm going to give her is damaged. She is a damaged woman.
Misunderstood. That's my word. She's not a damaged woman. She's a strong woman. She's a very strong woman. She knows how to use her charm, her personality. She knows when to get tough. She knows when to, put on the tears.
Either way, she...
Oh, no, she used tears as a weapon.
She used that to get what she wanted.
Either way, she feels like both the protagonist and the antagonist at the same time.
Well...
Kinda.
Yeah, I
would say that. It was weird having her. She was a very flawed person to be the main character. This definitely wasn't your hero's journey. It was closer to a villain's journey.
Misunderstood.
Misunderstood. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad I finally watched it, I guess. I don't think I'll ever want to watch it again.
Oh.
It was...
I can't tell you how many times I've actually seen it.
I would like to know what you think is the most... How many times do you think you've seen this movie?
I really don't know. Probably 50. Maybe more.
How many times have you seen it, Tim?
Entirely?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I haven't always watched the whole thing. I did go to the movie theater finally to go see it. That was amazing to see it on a big screen. But it also, when I see it on the big screen, because there's little things that I know about behind the scenes, like I was telling you, the scene where they have, all the soldiers laying, and it's like every third soldier is like really a doll, and they, like the person next to them moves their arms and legs. And when you've seen it on the big screen, you can actually kind of see that a little bit. Yeah.
I know it was kind of... I get that, because I remember I got to see Gremlins on the big screen. And they were doing a special showing of Gremlins, and I got to go see it. And it was cool to see it on the big screen, because Gremlins came out in 1984, so I was 2. And... I'm guessing you didn't take me to see Gremlins at 1984 at 2 years old. But it was real cool getting to see it on the big screen. Because I never got to. So, that's always fun, is getting to see the movies you loved.
Yeah. That
you probably were too young to see, or were... I mean, this movie was not even out in any of our lifetime.
No.
So there was no chance of seeing this one in the theater.
Not for me.
Or us. But, yeah.
And you gotta understand, when my dad went to see that, they would show a newsreel before that. So, it was even longer. Because, they would, like, your news, like you'd have on TV, they would show that, like the weekly news or something. They would show that.
Probably.
What's that?
That was like their trailers back then.
Yeah, they would show newsreels.
Plus, how long was the intermission?
I want to say a half hour.
15 is all I heard.
15?
Back then?
Yeah.
See, I thought it was a little longer, but I was thinking it was about a half hour, but maybe it was only 15. But I think it was more like a half hour.
Another cool thing about seeing this movie is we got to see we got to see scenes that are in the zeitgeist where they were scenes that I've seen other movies do a version of it, a parody of it, or like a cartoon making fun of it, or something like that. There was a couple scenes, one in particular I remember, that was, that I've heard in other movies, but I never, and that was the scene where at the very end of the first half, she's yelling at the sky, and God is my witness, I will lie, cheat, kill.
I will never go hungry again.
Yeah. I've seen that in so many movies.
And one of our favorite skits that we just watched, Carol Burnett does a scene that's like, what was it called? It wasn't called Gone with the Wind, but it was a scene from Gone with the Wind on the Carol Burnett show. And she comes down with a curtain rod in the dress that she's wearing, this green dress, and they make a comment about the dress, and she's like, "Oh, it's just something I seen in the window." And it's a brilliant. It's a brilliant little skit that they do on the Carol Burnett show.
Yeah. No, I knew that scene because I've seen it in many different versions in many different movies. I knew it was from a famous movie from the past. I just wasn't aware that it was from this movie. And I would have never guessed it was from this movie because it doesn't seem like a scene, not to sound sexist or anything like that, it doesn't seem like a scene, a curse that would be from a woman, especially back then. So,
well, that's why it was such a strong scene. Because, she was just your Southern belle. Didn't have to do anything for herself, including getting herself dressed. She had her mammy would get herself dressed. Right. And so then she ended up going through the Civil War, had to help Melanie give birth to her baby, had to go through that, go through the war, come back to Tara, deal with her mom died, had to shoot a soldier, she was at the point where she was starving. They had no food. They had no anything. What? They had a shell of a house and a cow, and that was all they had. And that's when she finds the carrot, and she says that's where she becomes strong. It's where she becomes the tough woman. Is like basically during the war when she becomes tough. And then does whatever she has to do to survive.
Correct. Yeah. It was a cool scene, and they did a silhouette, and they used silhouette very, very well in this movie. A lot of scenes where there's like a light backdrop, and then just shadowed person. They did that a few times, and that was one of them, where she's like, cursing about, cursing that she's never going to be hungry again and everything, and it was a silhouette. It was a darkened shadow, and all you see is the shadow of her. And it was a beautiful backdrop. I'd definitely give, if nothing else, this movie had beautiful scenes.
Well, it was. It would have been the very first movie to come out in color. But Wizard of Oz showed up just a few months before that.
Darn that Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, so Gone with the Wind, I think, premiered, I want to say in November. I could be wrong. But I believe it showed up in November, and Wizard of Oz came out, I want to say, maybe August?
So I'm guessing this was, when you say that, you mean the second live action in color, because Snow White came out before.
Yeah, there was cartoons, things like that. But the actual movie, Technicolor movie, because my dad remembers going to see Wizard of Oz and how amazing that was to see it in black and white, and then it just opens the door and there's color. So that was the very first movie to come out that wasn't black and white.
Yeah, that's a movie I've seen many times.
And that one, of course, that one amazed my dad because, like I said, it was black and white and then turned into color. And he talked about that movie several times through his life.
Yeah, didn't he say that a lot of people
people would leave the theater and wanted their money back?
This is bullcrap.
Because it was advertised in color and it starts out in black and white. So people got mad thinking, they lied.
Right.
So they left. They would leave the movie.
Yeah, I think I remember Granddaddy telling us that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an interesting movie. I'll go with interesting because it was more.
And they had all kinds of issues making this movie. How many different directors they went through, and this one wanted this one, and this one changed things. So the movie changed directors, and I don't know about writers so much, but I mean the movie Gone with the Wind, of course, is based off of a book.
Now, have you ever read the book?
I've not. I own the book.
Oh, okay.
I have never read the book because I'm not one to really sit down and start reading a book. I'd rather see a movie.
I'm kind of curious how different it is.
I know it is different in some ways, but it was a bestseller. So,
I believe I read that the book came out in 1933, 36 maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sure what year the book came out, but it was a bestseller.
For a movie to go from book to movie that quick back then, that's quick.
Yeah.
So it had to have been a bestseller.
Yeah, it was a bestseller, and she finally agreed to let it become a movie. Because the movie was kind of, if I recall, when I've heard this, the story was sort of her story. The one that wrote it, it was kind of love story part, was kind of like a story like she had kind of went through.
So she was damaged too? Misunderstood, I'm sorry.
Yeah, misunderstood. Yeah, I don't think, she didn't go through the Civil War and all that, but I think it is based partly on experiences that she had had. And I could be wrong there, but I thought that's what I've heard.
And besides, I don't even. You've already answered this question. I was going to ask you who your favorite character is besides Scarlet or Rhett, but you've already said it was the Mammy.
Oh, I love Mammy, but no, Scarlet's my favorite.
I said besides Rhett or Scarlet.
Oh, well, yeah, Mammy.
It's no fun picking the main characters because everybody picks the main characters.
Well, I mean,
like side characters.
Rhett Butler was just gorgeous. So, yeah, I mean, he's very handsome. And then Scarlet was just beautiful. And all of her dresses, I loved her dresses and stuff. And like I said, she was just misunderstood. She wanted love, but she just thought she wanted love through Ashley. And really, she had love.
Yeah, she's something.
She did what she had to do to get by.
It was a weird journey because there was parts of this movie where I really kind of hated her for most of it. And then there was parts where I was like, okay, she's a good person, but like, there was parts where I started to like her a little bit more, and then she would go back to the crying, and using the crying for the weapon I had an issue with. But then she, she just gets like the steely-eyed look when that Yankee was there, and she just shoots him in the face.
Said she did what she had to do.
Oh,
and she even said, well, I guess I killed someone, or I murdered. I guess I did that.
I'll worry about that tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was the scene where you really start, like, you start seeing her sister appreciate her more.
Melody. Her sister never appreciated her. Her youngest sister did. But her older sister hated her.
Why? Well, I know that, but I'm talking about the one that
Not her older
was
sister. The
married
older.
to Ashley, Melanie.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I felt that connection between the two. And well, I guess it all started with her helping her with the baby. Once she helped her with the baby, and that's when I felt like that's where, and I think Melanie is not naive enough to not know how Scarlett feels about Ashley.
I'm sure she did. She had to.
I don't think but I think she came to recognize that even though she loved her husband, that she was still there for her, protecting her. And that's one thing you can say about Scarlett. She defended her a lot. It protected her from the Yankee, which I guess she was protecting herself as well. Helped her with the baby. I mean, she did a lot trying to get that baby. I mean, I don't know if I could handle that if I was put in her position. So, I mean, and I think she got a love and respect for Scarlett despite all that.
Yep. Like I said, she was just a Southern belle, just a belle of the ball kind of thing, and she turned into a strong woman.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to say about your movie?
So everybody should watch it.
Xavier, do you have any questions for your grandma?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily?
No.
What's not necessarily mean?
It means no.
All right. Well, we actually talked way longer than I expected here. Not that that's a problem, but we talked for 32 minutes.
Well, it was a 4-hour movie.
That's fair.
A lot to say.
That's fair. All right. Well, I love you, and this will be out on Mother's Day, and happy Mother's Day.
Thank you. I love you too. Love you too, Xavier.
Love you.
Oh, once again, please, if you will, like and subscribe onto our YouTube page titled Coming Soon to a Podcast Near You, where all these wacky podcasts where we watch movies and review them go on. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Peace.